Hey team, what is going on? Hope you guys are doing well wherever you are watching this from. Welcome in to another episode of Quarantine Catch Up. My name's David, and I am joined by a very special guest, kind of my neighbor here in the Charlotte area, here in the Queen City, Miss Julie Molloy, Director of Executive Compensation and Global Mobility for the Sealed Air Corporation. Julie, how are you doing?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing very well. Are you enjoying these hot summer days here in Charlotte? I just moved from Texas last August. I thought I escaped the Texas heat. Good gosh, it's 90s every single day here. What's going
I
on?
know, not in Charlotte. And the thing is, it'll continue straight into like November, and
Yeah.
you'll just, the first 70-degree day, you're so excited. So I'm always so happy that in the South, we're at least prepared. So your house is air conditioned, your car is air conditioned, and that's pretty much the only places we're going these days. So at least
That's a great point. That's a great point. Yeah, it works out pretty well for work from home.
that's right.
For sure.
That's right.
Well, even though we are here in the same city, I'm really thankful that you are able to jump on here with me. And
Absolutely.
if you can't meet in person, then this is the next best thing. So thanks, Julie. I
Yeah,
appreciate it.
absolutely. Fun.
Cool. Okay, so for all of you guys that have seen this before, we like to start the episode with a segment that we're calling the Fast Five. So five not so hard-hitting questions aimed to get to know you a little bit better. Julie, are you ready for the Fast
I guess
Five?
so. We'll see.
All right, we're going to find out either way.
That's right. We'll see what I say.
All right, bring it on. Okay, number one. This is a question I've been asking a lot of folks. I think it's just gives us a cool idea as far as a peek into your personality and how you think. Not necessarily your favorite book that you've ever read, but what would be a book that you would give as a gift to someone, whether you found it inspirational, motivational, something like that?
If I were going to give a gift, I actually think I'd give the whole Harry Potter series
Yeah.
collection. It's such a great fantasy, kind of take yourself out of it sort of experience. We're just huge fans in my family, and I would definitely want to gift that to someone else.
Awesome, very cool. Have you guys made it down to Harry Potter World yet?
Absolutely. A little touchy because we were supposed to go this March and
Oh no. Got canceled.
canceled, but we love Universal. We love the Harry Potter world. We love it all. So as soon as we can get through all this nonsense with the pandemic, we are back on our way to.
Right on. Yeah, I wouldn't mind going down there and grabbing a butterbeer myself. So.
Right. Exactly.
All right, number two. Okay, number two. If you had to, if you were forced to, what would be the karaoke song of choice? If you're forced to sing karaoke, what would you sing?
So I want to be really clear that no one would want to be there. If I were forced to sing, it would empty out the bar.
Okay.
But one of my favorite songs is the song from the Drifters, Save the Last Dance.
Yeah, it's a great one.
Fun song. It's a song when my oldest was little, we would play it over and over in the car, and I would sing because in those moments I think I can sing, and he really enjoyed it. So I think that's what I'd choose if I were forced to do it. So
great. Good reason too. I like it.
yeah,
Okay.
right.
Number three. All right, number
Okay.
three. This is a would you rather. So we've got two choices. You have to pick one of the choices. Would you rather have free international first class plane tickets for the rest of your life, or would you rather never have to pay a restaurant bill for the rest of your life? So we're trying to figure out, would you choose travel or are you a foodie?
So I'm not terribly one or the other from an extreme, but if I had to choose one of those very cool options, I think I'd choose the flights. Working in global mobility, I've met and I have had great colleagues, and in some ways I'd love that free opportunity to go visit them and get to catch up with them, a couple times a year. And unfortunately, international flights are so expensive that that's not the first thing that you decide to do when you're booking a trip. So I think I'd choose that.
Makes sense. I like it. All right. Number four. If you guys know Julie, then she likes her coffee. All right. So I want to know, what is your go-to Starbucks pick? Do you just walk into Starbucks and say, "Hey, get me the Julie," and they know what you want?
Funny enough, they haven't put my name on the menu as an official thing yet. I'll have to keep working on that. But I would say 8 months out of the year, it's probably the skinny vanilla latte.
Good choice.
Of course, it's the pumpkin spice latte, which anytime Starbucks decides it's fall, and kind of straight through January they have it. So
All right. I think
yeah.
Starbucks decides it's fall in like early August, right? About next
I'm
week.
looking forward to it. I'm ready. Let's go.
Yeah.
Right.
I like it. Nice. All right. Finally, number 5 of the Fast 5, Julie. Last one. Okay. Dream big here now. No limitations whatsoever. If you did not pursue a career in global mobility relocation, what would you choose to do if you had to start all over again?
Well, I'm not sure I chose this to begin with.
Okay. We're going to dig into that in a little bit.
But I would, maybe I would be a Broadway star. Again, that assumes I could sing, which I can't, but you told me to dream big. So I'm going to dream that I can sing and add that to my other talents, and I would be on Broadway.
I love it. That's great. I said that's the first time someone chose Broadway star. So I like that. I told you to dream big.
That's right. That's right.
Well, thanks, Julie. I appreciate you indulging me for those. That's great. And thanks so much again for joining me today. Just was really hoping to, and you and I have had a chance to get to know each other a little bit, and here in Charlotte, and you've been really involved with CMARC, a past president, and I want to talk to you about that too, and your desire and intention on being involved in the community and the industry. But why don't we start from the beginning? I know that you're originally from the Philadelphia area, right?
Yep.
So coming out of school, coming out of college, I know you had a tax accounting background.
Yep.
What was your mentality coming out of school? Were you like, I'm going right to a Big Four? I'm maybe a CPA might be in my future. Kind of walk me through what you were thinking.
So I was really lucky. I have an accounting degree from Drexel University, and we had co-op programs where, 2 quarters of a year for 3 years, we would get to go intern and have paid internships at a company. And I was ever so lucky I transferred into Drexel, so I only had 2 internships to do. And I got selected to work at KPMG and to do the tax returns for expatriates. And I didn't even know what that was. I didn't know that. I'll admit it. I think I've admitted it before, but I'll admit I had no idea that KPMG was a big accounting firm at the time. I think it was the Big 5 back then. I just knew it was a paid internship. I didn't have to take classes. Who knew I'd be working 80 hours a week doing tax returns? But essentially, I turned that 6 months into a year and a half with KPMG, even when I went back and took classes. Wow. And in the city of Philadelphia, you could do that, right? I could go to my class and then hop on the train. And then I also had a year at Ernst & Young where I saw the consulting side. And so coming out of school, I had 2.5 years of big accounting experience doing international tax work and consulting. And that's what I was going to do. I mean, once I figured out what an expat was and what the taxes were, and I was hooked. Like, I was not doing anything else. I was not going to go and have a boring old accounting job. And I just loved it. And so, but what ended up happening was a company that was a client of mine, MBNA, their program was growing, and I had a former manager that had been hired to kind of really build up their mobility group. And I got hired to go work on the corporate side sort of right away, 2 days after I graduated college.
Wow.
And got to kind of, take all my experience from the accounting firms and really translate it to kind of corporate mobility. And really, I mean, the rest is history 20 some years later. So
Wow. So, and correct me if I'm wrong, Julie, but isn't it a lot of times, kids coming out of school and with accounting background, and they're going to work for, a big four. Isn't that a goal a lot of times, to get to industry or get to the corporate side?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the fact that myself and, I had a group of other, fellow students that were also out working at PricewaterhouseCoopers, and we just happened to luck out that they needed that extra help. And we could I worked 30 hours a week, through the rest of kind of my college years. It was great money, certainly better than waiting tables and getting no tips.
Yeah.
and great experience at the same time. But it's absolutely a goal. I mean, that's what, a lot of students got an offer, accepted an offer. For me, it was a tough decision because I knew if I went corporate, I would not be able to get my CPA because you wouldn't have your audit credential time. You wouldn't have those things.
Right.
And so it was quite a crossroads for me to decide, do I stay at the accounting firms and kind of do this work, or do I take this opportunity to go on the corporate side? And as a sort of really personal side note, I'm so glad I did because I actually met my husband.
Yeah.
He was working in a similar department, and that's how we met. And the rest of that is history. So, we all have these crossroads, and I'm ever so happy I took the left turn.
Yeah,
So,
no doubt. Well, it all happens for a reason, right?
Yeah, sure does.
Okay, so you were at MBNA.
Yeah.
And when does the transition happen? Because you were at Bank of America for a little bit.
Correct. So in 2005, my oldest was born, and I was out on maternity leave, and I came back, and 3 months later, we announced that MBNA had been sold to Bank of America. Mm-hmm. And so within 2 weeks, we had the swaths of Bank of America folks walking around with their BlackBerries, talking about transition. And meanwhile, I find out I'm pregnant again with our second child. And my husband and I were very, very blessed. We were offered opportunities with Bank of America, and we were offered a relocation package to Charlotte. And so with a 2-year-old and a 6-month-old, I figured out what domestic relocation was really like, up front and very personal. And we moved, and I stayed with Bank of America for a total of 14 years between MBNA and Bank of America before I left for an outside opportunity.
Wow. So while you were with B of A, obviously with the domestic relocation, what was that like? Was that the first time that you moved, I guess, properly through a corporate program?
Yeah, it's so funny. I was just talking to someone this week about, how important it is that those of us in mobility actually go through the process ourselves, because yes. At the time I was just doing international. So I'm sending families to China and to Hong Kong and to London and telling them how fabulous it's going to be. And then we were moved from Delaware to North Carolina, and right. I almost had a nervous breakdown. Right. Like, the plates didn't fit in the new cabinets in our new house. And I was, calling my husband in tears because, it gave me such a sense of true empathy. We can believe we're empathetic, but until we've actually experienced the struggle. And so it was a wonderful experience. The vendors and the third parties were great. But actually going through that, having young children, we had no family here. We had no family moving with us. We were reliant on literally colleagues who were incredible. But it certainly gave me a sense of real thought about, before I told someone how great it would be to move across the world, I could barely move 4 states. So
that is such a great point. And it's so, to your point, just the dishes, that's a small example, but it really is, it's such, I'm in household goods. It's such a personal business. You are, wrapping up and packing up people's lives essentially, and putting it into a giant truck or a giant metal container and sending it halfway across the world. It really is.
It really is. And you're hoping it's going to make it. And is it going to actually be usable where you're taking it? And, but we're ever so happy that we came. At first it was just so foreign, and I couldn't imagine not being close to family, but we've been here 13 and a half years, and we love it. We were thinking about moving. We're like, it's so great here. Charlotte's amazing. And I wouldn't go back now. But that first couple of months was pretty scary. And a big leap of faith for sure.
So with B of A, were you able to still work within the mobility department? Obviously, that's a much larger program, right?
It is. So I was hired to transition to Bank of America really as the global tax manager. So focused. So at MBNA, I was a bit more of a generalist, but then was able to really focus on global tax. Of course, in the interim, we had different acquisitions of our own. We had a big acquisition with Merrill Lynch. So before I knew it, I had kind of this big team. I had a growing family. So I stayed with mobility all but my last year, interestingly enough. So I did global tax for a long time. And then I actually stepped into a global policy role where I did all the policy design work for the global mobility team. And then I was kind of interested in, what else there I could do and grow into. And so I actually went into global compensation for a year and supported the businesses going through the annual cycle of decisioning bonuses, decisioning, equity, decisioning salary changes, and worked with that team for a year. And honestly found I really missed mobility. And so when there was a little bit of an opportunity to go lead a department outside of Bank of America, I did kind of jump on it, because as much as I love that experience, and today I do a lot of compensation work, I missed having mobility as part of my life. And so I was really quite keen to get very quickly back to it and kind of back to the crazy that is global mobility. So
well, there's never a day that's the same, right? It's always interesting, that's for sure.
You're always learning, and it's always changing. And you get to touch so many things in global mobility. I mean, you touch every aspect, from benefits to their payroll, to their compensation, to tax, you just touch it all. And there's no other HR related kind of area that's like that, where you get such a vast variety. Then you're thinking about employment law in certain countries and immigration. And I mean, you just have so much experience, and anything less than that is, you kind of think, oh, well, what do I do now? I'm done what I needed to do. Where's everything else I'm supposed to be doing? So.
Right. And obviously that takes a lot of self-awareness on your part to go a year just totally compensation and say, man, maybe there's something special about mobility. I need to get that.
Yeah.
Did you, those last couple of years in that role, was that going through your mind as far as, gosh, I really think I want to manage my own program. If an opportunity came up, I kind of want to make my mark on it. Or did that opportunity come up out of the blue, where you...
It came up, and I found that I was also responsible for domestic relocation as well, which I had only ever sort of touched on the fringes other than my own personal move. I was responsible for all US based employment immigration. So talking about TN and H-1Bs and green cards, and for non-mobility employees. And, quite honestly, I sort of held my breath and jumped. It's a little scary. I was thinking, do I know enough to actually run a department? And, and I was building they needed new policies. They were thinking about growing internationally. And I thought, do I really know enough to do this? And luckily I've got lots of great friends and former colleagues that gave me the confidence to just do it.
Yeah.
And you realize, I'd be in a meeting and something would come forward, and I thought, how do I remember that? How do I know that that's how that works? But it was all in there somewhere, just waiting for the opportunity, I guess. So.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, all your previous experiences kind of come together, really form how you're,
right.
Moving forward.
Yeah.
So the opportunity with Sealed Air, how does that come up?
So I left Bank of America and went to another company, and that's where I kind of dipped my toes in. And then Sealed Air was coming to Charlotte, and they were kind of pinging me quite aggressively about having a conversation, which they bribed me with coffee. I think that
they know the way to your heart. Yeah.
Coffee. And I thought, sure, let's have a coffee. And before I knew it, I was being interviewed officially. And it was almost a little bit of a whirlwind. But what Sealed Air was, it was bigger globally. It had a solid already domestic and international kind of structure, which I really wanted to kind of get back into the international sort of arena a lot quicker. And so it just was the right time. The person leading the program was not going to move to Charlotte, so it opened up a spot. And what is today, the 30th? On Saturday, I'll have been with Sealed Air for 5 years.
Wow.
And it feels like a heartbeat of a millisecond. But it's been an incredible opportunity, because I now not only do mobility, I do so many other things within Total Rewards, which has just given me, these great experiences and, a plethora of opportunities to kind of do other things even outside of true global mobility.
Right. That's fantastic. Okay. So, being where you are today, and I know we touched on it a little bit before, but you've served on the board. You've been the past president for.
I'm the president now.
Now. my
No,
apologies, Madam
that's
President.
okay. I'm the
So sorry.
COVID president. That's
Yeah,
going
I
to be
know
my
it's such a weird
legacy.
time, isn't it? I was all set to come to the last meeting before it got canceled. Of course,
I
everyone was
know.
canceling.
Me too.
Currently the president of CMARC, the Charlotte
Yeah.
Metro Area Relocation Council.
Yeah.
What's the motivation for you, Julie? As a corporate person, to not only be involved with the board, but to take that top spot. I mean, and that's an investment. I'm on the board for the Houston Relocation Professionals. That's an investment of time and effort, that's for sure.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you have limited time as it is in your normal role. What's the motivation for you to be involved?
I think a little bit of it is, I initially started when I took on domestic, and I reached out to someone and said, I need a network. I had a international tax network. I had that stuff, but I needed a network. And CMARC was from day one so friendly, so welcoming, so open, such a great way to connect with so many different people from all aspects of the service side, all different corporations. And so the first few years, I did more taking than giving. It was understanding how things work, making those connections, getting the benchmark data, really, getting that kind of industry kind of good discussion going on. This, for me, kind of stepping into the president role, Katie Keith, who was president last year and used to be the mobility manager on my team, has now moved into a global benefits role this year. She bribed me with coffee to be the
I sense a theme here going.
Yeah. Sense a theme, things with coffee. I'll do anything for coffee. So, but for me, this now is us giving back. This is me giving back, saying, there are other people that are newer to this industry that are looking to learn. And so for me, it's important that we continue to give these opportunities, bring in good opportunities to have an education forum. And really me being open to having any discussion with anyone. I mean, I'll share with you whatever I've learned in these 20 some years of doing this. I'll share with you if it's going to help you, so it's a little bit of that giving back. It is hard. It's hard to fit it in. Sometimes it feels like there's so many competing priorities. And as a corporate member, you don't get the same sort of relaxation or opportunity to say, hey, I've got to carve out this part of my day to do this. Right. I think there's a lot more sort of expectation if you're on the service side that's expected to be part of your role. Right. So it's harder, and you have to be more creative about finding that time. But it's so important. And I love leading this group, and especially through this crazy pandemic. And but it's a great opportunity for me, really.
Yeah. Okay. So in closing, Julie, I think in that same vein of CMARC and different regional groups, I think that's always a big question for boards of regional groups: is how do we get more corporate involvement, and how do we attract more corporate members? You're in a unique position where you're leading the organization. You're president of CMARC as a corporate member. Yeah. What insights can you give us to make it more attractive for corporate members to be involved?
And this is hard because in some ways, mobility is a zero-sum game. Every once in a while, there's truly a new creative idea, but otherwise it's evolutions of similar themes. That being said, what corporate members are looking for is to have a new conversation. If they, especially those that have done it for a long time, they've been through every RFP, they've thought of every policy design. And it's not easy, but it's trying to find ways to bring them new opportunities. And maybe it's not all mobility topics that we're bringing them, but give them a reason to come and make those connections. And I know most of the mobility groups have this as part of their rules, is no solicitation, right? Give them a sort of a free, space to come to where they don't feel like they're going to get 50 phone calls with people asking to kind of have their business. Right. That's kind of a non-starter for corporate, but you have to be able to find ways to bring them new information so that they feel like, yeah, I'm really going to get something from this connection. And so, and then it's putting the corporate folks like myself that are already involved out there and making sure that we're selling the benefits of what that group is, because we sort of trust each other, if you will, right? If I say this is really great, somebody's going to listen to it because we're in the same place.
Right.
So those are my thoughts there.
Yeah, well said. Thanks, Julie. Well, Julie, I really appreciate you joining me today, and it's always great catching up with you. I wish we could have done this over a cup of coffee, but maybe someday soon, hopefully. But thanks so much. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Yeah, well, for Julie, I'm David. Thanks so much for catching up.